The message arrived without warning. It traveled through dark space, crossing star systems and silent voids until it reached the far edges of human territory. It was only one signal, a single cry for help, but the meaning behind it was powerful enough to shake every command center that heard it. It was an SOS signal from a Deathworlder colony. Commander, Rian Hale stood inside the command bridge of the HSS Vanguard. When the alarm sounded, the ship was one of humanity's largest dreadnoughts, a beast of metal and firepower, designed only for wars that no one hoped to fight. Yet as the lights flashed red and the tech officers began shouting upgrades, Rian felt something cold settle inside his chest. He turned toward the main screen. The signal was playing again, a broken voice, full of fear, heavy breathing, and background explosions. The voice did not mention who the attackers were. It only repeated a short message again and again. SOS to all Deathworlder allies. We need help, please. They are coming. The message cut off with a loud static blast, as if the sender was pulled away or the transmitter was destroyed in that exact moment. Every person on the bridge went silent. Even experienced officers who had survived battles felt a chill crawl across their skin. No one knew what exactly could scare Deathworlders enough to send a desperate message like this. Deathworlders were some of the toughest beings known in the galaxy. If they were calling for help, something terrible must have happened. Rian breathed slowly, trying to hide his tension. Location of the signal? Outer Rim Sector 9, answered a young navigation officer. A small colony. No previous conflict reports. No expected danger. Rian studied the star map floating in front of him. The colony was far from any major trade route. There was nothing special about it. No resources, no military bases, nothing worth attacking. So why target it? Before he could think deeper, another officer called out, "Sir, other dreadnoughts are responding to the signal too." Fleet Command just confirmed a mobilization order. Rian raised an eyebrow. Humanity never answered distress calls lightly. But something about this one was different. Something about the fear in that voice, something that did not fit normal threats. How many dreadnoughts? Rian asked. All of them, the officer replied quietly. Every available one. Rian felt his pulse quicken. If Command was sending the full fleet, then this was no small attack. It was a crisis. The Vanguard moved out its dock, engines roaring with energy, and soon many more massive ships appeared on the scanners. Dreadnoughts, huge, dark, armored shadows formed a line across the stars. Their combined power was enough to crush entire fleets. Yet even with all this strength, no one on board felt calm. The fleet jumped into hyperspace. Inside the Vanguard, the crew prepared for battle. Engineers checked weapon systems. Medical officers ranged emergency centers. Soldiers rehearsed boarding strategies. The smell of metal and tension mixed in the air like a warning. Rian walked across the bridge, watching his crew carefully. Some were anxious, some excited, but all were alert. "Remember this," he said. "We don't know the enemy. We don't know what happened. But we do know this. Someone called for help. We answer." The crew nodded, their fear replaced with determination. As the ship continued through hyperspace, unusual data began appearing on the screens. Strange readings, energy spikes, something unnatural, something powerful. Rian frowned. "What is that?" A science officer zoomed into the readings. "I don't know, sir, but it's not like any weapon or ship we've seen before. And it's spreading." "Spreading?" "Yes. Whatever hit the Deathworlder colony isn't staying in one place. It's moving." Rian leaned closer. "How fast?" "Fast enough that if we had arrived even 1 hour later, the entire colony might have vanished from the map." Rian stayed silent for a moment. The officer's voice shook slightly. "Sir, sensors show damaged signals from other colonies near that sector. Not SOS signals, but disrupted communications. Maybe they didn't get the chance to send anything." The bridge grew colder. Rian stared at the map. A pattern was forming, small colonies losing contact one by one, like lights going dark in a long corridor. Something was sweeping across the region. "What exactly are we flying into?" he whispered. Minutes later, the dreadnought fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Everyone on board gasped. The planet ahead was burning. Not a normal fire, not from bombs or lasers. This was something stranger. Glowing fractures crawled across the surface like veins of living energy. Whole sections of land floated in the air, broken apart. It looked as if the planet itself was being peeled open. Debris floated in orbit. Ships, buildings, a cracked moon. The bridge screens filled with warnings. No signs of survivors. No signs of attackers. Either. Just destruction. A soft voice broke the silence. It was the youngest officer on the bridge. "Sir, what kind of enemy can do this?" Rian did not know the answer, but he felt certain of one. Thank God this was not the unexpected war. This was only the start. The destruction around the Deathworlder colony was so massive that even the hardened crew of the Vanguard could not look away. The Dreadnoughts slowly moved through the floating debris field, their shields glowing as they pushed aside broken metal and strange dust that drifted like mist. Commander Rian kept his eyes on the main screen. Every passing moment made the scene worse. Pieces of land still burning, cracked hulls of ships spinning slowly. Some debris looked melted, some crystallized, and some seemed hollow, as if something had drained them from the inside. But there were no enemies, no signals, no movement, nothing alive. The silence felt wrong. A sensor officer spoke quietly. "Sir, scanning for survivors, but I'm not getting anything, not even weak life signs." Rian exhaled slowly. "Keep searching. Someone must have escaped." They scanned deeper. They searched every section of space, but the results stayed the same: empty readings. The Dreadnought fleet spread out around the destroyed colony. Hundreds of drones launched from the ships, flying into the ruins to give clearer pictures. Every visual feed showed the same nightmare: shattered buildings, melted metal, and deep marks all over the ground like something massive had crawled across it. Then one drone found something strange, a metallic circle carved into the planet's crust. Smooth, perfect, too perfect for natural destruction. Rian leaned forward. "What is that?" The science officer zoomed in. "It looks like a crater, but the shape is too exact. It's like someone used a blade the size of a mountain to carve it." A young tech officer swallowed nervously. "Sir, if something made that shape, how big would it have to be?" The science officer hesitated. "Far larger than any ship in our records." Rian turned toward the main weapon officer. "Scan for radiation, heat, anything." The officer's hands moved across the controls. A few seconds later, his face tightened. "Sir, I found something. Very faint, but definitely artificial." "Artificial?" Rian repeated. "Yes, but the signature is unknown. It's not from any alien species we've documented. It's something new." The entire bridge went quiet. Before anyone could speak again, the Dreadnought fleet received a transmission from their central command. Admiral Voss, the highest-ranking officer in this region, appeared on the screen. His expression was serious, but his voice remained calm. "Commander Hale, I've received your scans. We believe this attack is not isolated. 2 more colonies in the nearby sectors have gone silent within the last hour." Rian blinked. "The same pattern?" "Yes, and we believe the threat is moving toward populated space." Rian felt a cold weight settle on his shoulders. "Do we know who or what is responsible?" Admiral Voss shook his head. "No, but whatever it is, it leaves nothing behind. No survivors, no wreckage, not even remains." A new silence filled the bridge, a silence different from fear. It was the silence people have when they realize something they never prepared for is coming. Admiral Voss continued, "Your orders are simple. Find the source, identify the threat, and stop it before it reaches civilized space." Rian nodded slowly. "Understood." The transmission ended. Rian turned back toward his crew. "Prepare a deeper scan of the region. I want to know if anything left the system recently." The navigation officer worked quickly. Minutes later, she pointed at the screen. "Sir, I found a trail. Some kind of energy flow leaving the system. Weak, but traceable. Direction? Sector 11. The path is strange, almost like the source is jumping between points without using hyperspace lanes." Rian frowned. "That suggests advanced movement, or something we don't understand." The officer nodded nervously. Suddenly, another officer called out, "Sir, I'm picking up something else. A beacon. Very faint. It's from a Deathworlder escape pod." Everybody tensed. "Location?" Rian asked sharply. "Just outside the destroyed moon's orbit. The pod is almost drained. Life support is failing." Rian didn't waste a second. "Send a retrieval team. Stop everything else and bring that survivor aboard. Now." The crew moved fast. A rescue shuttle launched from the Vanguard and sped through the debris. Minutes felt like hours as the ship tracked its progress. Each second was precious. If the survivor had any information, it could save thousands of lives. Finally, the retrieval team returned. The medical bay was prepared. Rian was there immediately. The survivor was a Deathworlder soldier, barely conscious. His armor half melted, His skin burned from exposure to whatever had attacked the colony. Medical officers surrounded him, trying to stabilize his breathing. Rian stepped closer. Can he talk? The doctor shook his head. He's weak, but he's trying. The Deathworlder's eyes opened slightly. They were filled with terror, real terror, the kind that only comes from seeing something impossible. Rian leaned down. We are here to help. Tell us what attacked your colony. The soldier struggled to breathe, forcing out a few words. Not ships, not machines. He coughed, pain shaking his body. Rian waited. The soldier whispered the last thing he had the strength to say. It eats planets. His eyes closed. Machines began to beep loudly. His vitals dropped. Rian stepped back, frozen. If the soldier wasn't hallucinating, if he truly saw something that could eat planets, then this was no enemy any species had ever faced, and it was still out there, moving toward the next star. The medical bay grew silent after the Deathworlder soldier spoke his final words. Every person in the room stood frozen, trying to understand what he meant. Something that ate planets, something that wasn't a ship, nor a machine, something that moved across space like a storm with purpose. Commander Rian stayed beside the bed, staring at the soldier, whose breathing had now gone still. Doctors tried to revive him, but they knew it was hopeless. His body had suffered damage beyond anything normal radiation burns, crystallized skin patches, and strange marks that no one could identify. Rian looked at the doctor. Could he have been hallucinating? The doctor shook his head. His brain scans showed fear, exhaustion, and trauma, but no signs of delusion. He saw something real. Rian felt a cold sensation crawl up his spine. If a Deathworlder soldier, one of the toughest fighters in the galaxy, was terrified beyond reason, then whatever attacked them was something far beyond normal understanding. He walked back toward the bridge, his mind filled with questions. When he entered, the crew stood still, waiting for his words. They could see the seriousness on his face. The survivor is gone, Rian said. But he gave us a warning. Something attacked his colony. He said, it eats planets. Whispers spread across the bridge. Some officers instinctively stepped closer to the screens, as if they expected something to appear in space at that exact moment. The science officer finally spoke. Sir, if something consumes planetary matter, the energy readings would be massive. We would see traces even from light years away. Rian pointed at the glowing cracks on the destroyed planet below. Then explain that. Explain the missing colonies. Explain why there are no bodies, no enemies, nothing left. The officer had no answer. Another officer called from her station. Sir, we are still tracking the energy trail leaving this system. It's faint, but consistent. Whatever attacked the planet is moving toward Sector 11. Rian stepped closer to the star map. A line blinked softly across the holographic display, showing the trail of energy weaving through the void like a thin thread. How fast is it moving? Rian asked. We estimate several times faster than any known ship. Even faster than hyperspace jumps, she replied. It doesn't use hyperspace lanes. It moves through regions where normal ships can't. Rian frowned. So it's ignoring all travel rules. Yes, sir. The Dreadnought fleet adjusted its formation and prepared to follow the trail. Engines powered up, shining blue across the dark space. But before the fleet began its jump, something unexpected happened. A sharp alarm screamed through the bridge. The sensor officer stared at his screen in shock. New reading. Very high energy spike detected from the destroyed planet. Rian turned sharply. What kind of spike? Unknown, but it's huge and rising. The screen showed the broken planet glowing brighter. The cracks across its surface pulsed like veins. Light flowed through them, as if something buried under the crust was waking up. Sir, the science officer said in a shaky voice, I think we're seeing residual activity from the attack. The planet is unstable. The entire bridge felt the tension. Even the experienced soldiers stood rigid. Suddenly the planet fractured further, releasing a powerful wave of shimmering particles. The dreadnoughts raised their shields instantly, but even then the wave hit them hard, shaking every ship in the fleet. Rian grabbed the side railing as the bridge trembled. What was that? He shouted. The officer analyzed the data. It's not a weapon, it's leftover energy from whatever drained the planet. It's like the planet is collapsing from the inside. The scan display blinked again. A new alert appeared. The science officer's eyes widened. Sir, something else is happening. Rian stepped forward quickly. Report. Those particles from the wave. They're not random. They're moving in a pattern. Almost like they're following something. Rian's heart dropped. Following what? The officer traced the flow on the map. The shimmery wave of particles began drifting outward from the broken planet, joining the same energy trail they had been tracking earlier. There, following the same direction as the threat, the officer whispered. The entire fleet watched, as space itself seemed to point toward the unknown. Enemy, it left behind something, Rian murmured. Something that can carry energy, maybe scan the area, or gather more material. The science officer looked disturbed. Sir, I don't think it's gathering anything. I think this is part of its feeding process. When it leaves a planet after consuming it, the remaining energy follows behind, like scraps falling from a predator's mouth. No one spoke after that. Rian took a deep breath. We move now. If we wait any longer, we lose the chance to understand what we're facing. The Dreadnought fleet prepared for another jump. Engines charged once again, humming like thunder as the countdown began. A quiet message came through the communication channel. It was weak, broken, and distorted by static. No one knew where it came from. Don't follow, run, it hears. The message ended instantly. Every officer on the bridge felt their blood run cold. Rian locked his eyes on the dark space ahead. Whatever this thing was, it destroyed planets, moved faster than fleets, and survivors warned not to follow it. But they had no choice. If humanity did nothing, the next planet it ate might not be an empty colony. It might be home. The Dreadnought fleet entered hyperspace again, chasing the fading energy trail through deep, empty regions of space. The stars stretched into white lines as the engines roared with power. But even with all the advanced technology, the crew felt uneasy. It wasn't the jump that frightened them. It was the idea that they were moving closer to something they did not understand, something that could erase entire worlds without leaving a trace of life behind. Commander Rian stood at the center of the bridge, watching the trail ahead. The faint line of energy behaved strangely. It twisted and curved in ways hyperspace should not allow. Sometimes the trail vanished for a few seconds before appearing again far away, as though the creature or whatever it was moved in jumps that ignored all physics. What's our distance? Rian asked. The navigation officer checked her console. If the trail strength is correct, we are closing in slowly, but it remains many systems ahead. If it continues at this speed, we may never catch it. Rian frowned. What if it stops somewhere? She hesitated. Then it must be searching for another planet. Rian turned his head slightly. That was the fear in everyone's mind. The enemy wasn't fleeing. It was hunting. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the sound of the engines filled the room. Then the sensor officer broke the silence. Sir. New readings. Something strange at the edge of the next system. Rian stepped closer. Strange how? The officer zoomed in. A structure. No, not a structure. Something large. Too uniform to be natural. Too irregular to be a ship. Rian stared at the hologram as the image grew clearer. It was an enormous cluster of objects floating in space crystals, metal shards, and pieces of debris. They weren't scattered randomly. They looked arranged, almost like they had grown from a single point. The science officer whispered, "It resembles the material on the destroyed planet. The crystallized remains." Rian's jaw tightened. So it's spreading the same material across space. Possibly, sir. Or it uses these clusters for something. Maybe communication, maybe navigation. Rian didn't like either idea. As the fleet approached the cluster, the dreadnoughts slowed down and spread into a defensive formation. The closer they got, the more details became clear. The entire cluster pulsed with weak energy, like a heartbeat. Sections of metal twisted and fused together as if melted and reshaped by something powerful. The communication officer suddenly sat upright. "Sir, something is emitting a faint signal from inside the cluster. Translate it," Rian ordered. Static filled the speakers at first. Then a broken voice emerged, a voice everyone recognized. It was the Deathworlder soldier who had died in their medical bay. Rian's blood turned cold. "Run. It hears. It sees." The same message repeated again, fractured, almost like an echo recorded before his death. "How is this possible?" Rian asked quietly. The science officer looked pale. "Sir, this cluster might absorb signals, then re-emit them. It could be trying to confuse us or scare us." Rian clenched his jaw. "Or warn us." The voice played again, but slightly different this time. A second message, one they had not heard before. It turned stars empty. The bridge froze. Even the crew members who rarely reacted to fear stood stiff. "What does that mean?" The communication officer whispered. No one could answer. Rian pointed at the screen. "Scan deeper. Look for anything inside the cluster. The drone feed switched to a closer view. Debris floated slowly like it was suspended in thick liquid. Strange patterns glowed faintly across the surfaces, forming shapes that almost resembled symbols or veins. Then the drone light caught something else. A sphere, perfectly round, smooth, dark, almost invisible. It sat in the center of the cluster. "What is that?" Rian asked sharply. "Unknown, sir," the officer replied. "It's absorbing all scans. We can't read its surface, mass, or energy." The drone moved closer. To close. Without warning, the sphere shifted. Not physically, but something around it changed. A wave of invisible force shot outward. The drone camera spun violently and went black. The bridge alarm screamed, "Energy surge." The sensor officer yelled, "It's charging something." "Shields up," Rian shouted. The dreadnoughts raised full shields just in time. The cluster exploded into a burst of shimmering fragments. The sphere released a pulse that shook every ship in the fleet. Some officers fell from their seats. Others grabbed the rails. The lights flickered. "What was that?" someone shouted. The science officer stared at the screen in horror. "Sir, that wasn't an attack. That was a signal." "A signal to what?" Rian demanded. Before anyone could answer, the energy trail ahead changed. It grew brighter, stronger, faster. The creature, or whatever it was, had heard the signal. "It knows we're here," the sensor officer whispered. "It's turning toward us." The entire fleet went silent. Rian looked at the stars ahead and felt something he rarely felt: dread. The dreadnought fleet held position, every ship ready for impact. The air on the Vanguard's bridge felt heavy, almost thick, as if the fear itself had weight. No one moved. No one spoke. Alarms flashed silently across the screens. The energy trail ahead, once a faint line, had now brightened so much that it looked like a glowing scar across space. Commander Rian stood frozen for only a moment before forcing his voice to remain steady. "Is it really turning toward us?" The sensor officer checked again, hands shaking slightly. "Yes, sir. Its direction is changing. It's coming back." The room felt colder. Rian gave quick orders. "All ships, defensive grid. Charge weapons, but hold fire. No one attacks until we understand what we're facing." The fleet obeyed instantly. Dreadnoughts rearranged into a massive wall of metal, creating a barrier between the unknown threat and the inhabited systems behind them. Engines moved into low-power mode to reduce heat signatures. Shields glowed softly, ready to withstand the first hit. Minutes passed slowly. The energy trail grew brighter, then brighter still, until it began to pulse. "Something's happening," the navigation officer whispered. "The trail is vibrating, like waves hitting our sensors." Rian frowned. "It's communicating, or sensing." The science officer nodded uneasily. "Sir, I think it's scanning this region. It may already know the size of our fleet." Rian's jaw tightened. The fleet had come to protect the galaxy, but right now, they felt like prey waiting for a predator to step out of the dark. A deep hum echoed through the ship. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't artificial. It felt more like a vibration through space itself. The screen flickered and flashed static. The communication officer stood quickly. "Sir, we're receiving something. A signal unknown origin." "Put it through," Rian ordered. The audio played. First came a low, rumbling noise, like something enormous dragging across stone. Then a faint whisper, not a voice, more like an echo of countless voices overlapping each other. "Hungry." The bridge fell completely silent. "Hungry," the whisper repeated, growing slightly clearer. Not loud, but sharp enough to pierce through the mind like a needle. The young officers exchanged frightened glances. The science officer murmured, "It's not speaking. It's giving off a mental pattern. It may not even understand language the way we do." Another whisper came through, deeper this time. "More." Rian clenched his fists. "Cut the signal." The sound stopped. The silence afterward felt worse. A sudden alert flashed red across the sensor screen. "Sir, I'm detecting something ahead." The sensor officer shouted. "A large object, no. An enormous object exiting the energy trail." The screen zoomed in. At first, there was only darkness. Then a shape appeared. Not a ship, not a creature, something between both. A gigantic, shadow-like mass emerged from the glowing trail, as if stepping out of another dimension entirely. It had no clear form, just a shifting, swirling surface made of black crystal, metal fragments, and glowing veins of energy that pulsed in rhythm like breathing. A murmur of fear rippled through the bridge. "That thing," someone whispered. The creature didn't move like a ship. It folded and unfolded like liquid metal. Its edges shimmered, and sometimes chunks broke off before melting back into its body. The science officer stared in disbelief. "Sir, I think it absorbs everything it touches and adds it to itself. That explains the debris clusters. They're parts of what it consumes." Another officer said softly, "It looks like it's made of dead planets." Rion's voice dropped. "How big is it?" The answer came slowly. "It's at least the size of a small moon, and growing. Even a dreadnought built for war looked tiny compared to it." The creature glided toward the fleet. Without hesitation, Rion gave the order. "All ships, retreat formation. Hold distance." But before they could move, a wave of energy pulsed from the creature. Space around the dreadnoughts twisted. The ships trembled violently. The sensor officer panicked. "It's pulling us in. It's using gravity distortion." Engines roared at full power, fighting against the invisible pull. Sparks flew from one console as the ship strained. Rion grabbed the railing. "Power everything into reverse thrust." The fleet struggled. Drifting backward slowly, the creature moved closer, massive, silent, endless. Then something unexpected happened. The creature paused. The pulsing veins along its body dimmed. It turned, slightly, as if confused. The science officer blinked. "Sir, it's not attacking." Rion frowned. "Why?" The screen filled with new data. The creature wasn't looking at them. It was looking behind them, at the star system behind human space. Rion's eyes widened. "It's not here for us." The science officer swallowed hard. "Sir, it's hungry, and it senses something larger, richer. Behind our fleet." The crew realized the terrible truth. The creature wasn't a predator that hunted ships. It hunted stars, and their star systems were full of fresh planets. Rion raised his voice. "All dreadnoughts prepare for full combat engagement. If we don't stop it here, it will reach populated worlds." The creature's surface brightened. Its veins pulsed. Again, stronger, faster, and it turned toward them with intent. Not hunger, purpose. The first battle with the planet eater was about to begin. The creature drifted forward like a dark storm, its massive form blocking out distant stars. Every dreadnought in the fleet locked weapons on it, though no one knew if their firepower would do anything at all. The bridge of the Vanguard glowed red with warning lights. Every console flashed rapid alerts. The crew prepared for the battle. Many hoped they would never have to fight. Commander Rion kept his voice steady. "All ships, hold formation. Do not fire until I give the command." The dreadnoughts spread out in a wide arc, their shields brightening as power surged into them. Turrets opened, missile bays unfolded, and rail cannons charged with deep metallic hums. The entire fleet had become a wall of light and steel. But the creature moved toward them. Without fear, the science officer spoke quietly, unable to take his eyes off the screen. "Sir, its outer shell is changing. It's adapting, almost like it knows we're preparing to attack." Rion understood what he meant. The creature's body, if it could even be called a body, shifted rapidly. New layers grew across its surface, forming thick plates that glowed faintly with absorbed energy. It was preparing to. The sensor officer flinched. Massive energy built up inside the creature. "Brace!" Rion shouted. The creature released another wave, this one far more concentrated. The wave hit the dreadnought shields like a silent hammer. The Vanguard shook violently. Officers grabbed the rails, holding on as the floor vibrated beneath them. Shield integrity at 80%. Someone yelled. The creature was still far away, yet it could already damage their defenses. Rion knew this battle could only end two ways. Humanity would find a way to hurt the creature, or the creature would consume every world behind them. The next moment came fast. "Commander, the creature is opening something on its surface," the science officer said. A circular shape formed an enormous opening lined with pulsing veins of light. Energy swirled inside like a vortex. "Is it charging an attack?" Rion asked. "No, sir," the officer said slowly. "I think it's absorbing space itself, creating a vacuum pull." The dreadnoughts drifted forward against their engine's thrust. They weren't being pulled by gravity. This was something stronger, something that bent space like cloth. Rion shouted, "All ships, maximum engine power, full reverse." The engine screamed as they fought the pull. The fleet's formation stretched, some ships moving back slower than others. Smaller vessels struggled hardest. The creature turned the vortex toward the nearest dreadnought, a ship called the HSS Titanus. The Titanus tried to break free, engines glowing white, but the pull grew stronger. Rion slammed his fist on the console. "Get them out of there. Fire anchors. Pull them with magnetic tethers." The Vanguard fired an anchor beam toward the Titanus, followed by 2 more dreadnoughts. The magnetic tethers latched onto the hull and pulled, engines burning at maximum output. The Titanus groaned under pressure, metal creaking. For a moment, it looked like the pull would rip the ship apart. Then the magnetic lines snapped one by one. Rion's eyes widened. No, the Titanus slid toward the vortex. Alarms rang across the fleet. The crew on the doomed dreadnought could be heard shouting through the comms, engines failing. We can't break free. It's pulling us in. The Titanus vanished into the swirling light. The vortex closed. The dreadnought disappeared without a sound. A wave of silence rolled across the bridge. The space where the Titanus had been was now empty. Rion's voice came out rough. We just lost a dreadnought. In seconds, the crew didn't need him to say more. They understood the danger perfectly. Their weapons might be useless. Their shields might not hold, and the creature could erase them without even trying. The communication officer suddenly spoke. Sir, incoming signal from the dreadnought Hammerfall. They're requesting permission to fire. Rion looked at the creature. It moved closer now, slowly, almost lazily, like a predator bored with the chase. It knew it was stronger. Rion made his choice. Permission granted. All ships fire at will. The space exploded with light. Hundreds of rail cannons fired rounds that crackled with kinetic energy. Missile trails streaked across the darkness. Plasma beams roared from the dreadnoughts, slicing the void with blinding light. The shockwave from the combined firepower lit up the creature's surface. The effects were immediate. Explosions rippled across its outer shell, sending fragments floating away. Large cracks appeared. For the first time, the creature recoiled. A cheer broke out among the crew. It's working. The weapon officer shouted Dot, but the science officer's expression didn't change. Wait, something's wrong. The creature's surface shifted again. The cracks closed. Melted sections hardened into new armor. Its glowing veins brightened. It's healing, the science officer whispered. And then something worse happened. The creature began to grow. It absorbed all the energy thrown at it missiles, plasma, kinetic impacts, and its mass increased. Like a sponge soaking up water, it fed on the very weapons meant to destroy it. Rion stared in disbelief. It's feeding on our attacks. Another bright pulse came from its body. The sensor officer shouted in panic. It's charging again. Rion had little time to think. All ships, evasive maneuvers, scatter formation. The creature fired. The pulse wasn't a beam. It wasn't a blast dot, it was a wave. A silent ripple across space. Approaching faster than any ship could move, Rion realized something terrifying. This wasn't the final attack dot, this was the creature getting serious dot, and when the wave hit, nothing would ever be the same again. The wave moved so fast that the screens on the Vanguard could barely track it. It wasn't bright or loud. It was quiet, almost gentle, but the space behind it warped and twisted like liquid. Every dreadnought in the fleet rushed to escape, but the wave spread wider and wider, stretching across thousands of kilometers like an invisible wall. Commander Rion gripped the railing. All hands, brace for impact. The wave hit the Vanguard first. The lights dimmed. The ship shook violently. Panels sparked as the shields absorbed the force. The crew held on as the entire ship groaned under pressure, shields dropping. 70%-60-50. Rion yelled over the noise, divert all power to shields. Hold them steady. The engines shut down for a few seconds as energy transferred forward. The wave pushed harder, trying to crush the dreadnoughts like tin cans. Then, as suddenly as it came, the wave passed. The ship steadied itself. Officers checked damage reports rapidly. We survived. Someone shouted Dot, but Rion didn't celebrate. Status of the fleet. He asked. The holo display flickered, then stabilized. Several dreadnoughts had survived, but others drifted dead in space, their lights gone. Their engines silent. One massive ship rotated slowly, broken apart in chunks. A cold silence fell across the bridge. The creature glided forward, unharmed, its glowing veins brighter than ever. It had fed from the attack and the wave both. Its size had increased again. It was nearly double what it had been before the fight began. Rion stared at it with a sinking feeling. They could not win with normal weapons. Every shot only made the creature stronger. The science officer looked pale. Sir, all data confirms it. The creature cannot be defeated with energy or kinetic force. Anything we fire becomes part of its mass, that we need something it can't absorb. Rion said quietly. But what? The officer asked. Rion didn't answer. Not yet. The creature shifted again, opening that same swirling vortex as before. This time, it was larger, much larger, large enough to swallow the entire fleet in one pull. And behind the fleet lay human space worlds filled with billions of lives. Rian finally made his decision. He pressed the intercom. All ships, fall back. Form a defensive line behind the vanguard. Prepare for evacuation protocols. The communications officer looked confused. Sir, what are you planning? Rian looked at the glowing monster filling half the screen. I'm ending this. He turned toward the weapon officer. Open the core chamber. The officer froze. Sir, that would expose the antimatter core. I know, sir. If the core is destabilized, Rian nodded. It will create an explosion nothing can absorb. Not even that thing. The officer swallowed. You won't survive. Rian didn't look away from the creature. His voice was calm. If we don't stop it now, no one will survive. A long silence followed. The crew looked at him, some in shock, some in fear, and some with deep respect. Finally, the officer activated the core chamber. Warning lights flashed everywhere. The Vanguard's heart glowed bright blue, visible through the floor vents. The massive antimatter core hummed like a living star. Rian gave one last order. All remaining ships, retreat to a safe distance. And whatever happens, tell them humanity didn't run. The Dreadnoughts obeyed, engines flaring as they moved back. Rian watched each of them go until only the Vanguard remained in front of the creature. The monster released another pulse of energy, but this time, the Vanguard didn't try to escape. Rian walked to the center console and tapped the final sequence. The science officer spoke softly, voice shaking. Commander, it has been an honor. Rian allowed a small smile. Tell them I said the same. The antimatter core glowed brighter and brighter. Lights spilled across the bridge like the sun rising. The ship trembled under the pressure of the overload. The creature moved closer. Sensing his next meal, Rian stared into the swirling darkness of the monster's surface. For humanity, he whispered. He hit the final command. The screen went white. A silent flash consumed the space around the Vanguard. The antimatter core collapsed in on itself before exploding outward with unimaginable force. A shockwave of raw, pure destruction spread across the void. The creature struck the blast head-on. For the first time, it did not absorb. It cracked. Its glowing veins burst like shattered glass. Its dark surface ripped apart. Entire sections of its body vaporized instantly. The shockwave continued, tearing the monster into fragments too small to reform. The vortex collapsed. The energy trail vanished. The surrounding space calmed. When the light faded, nothing remained of the creature, and nothing remained of the Vanguard. The surviving dreadnoughts held position, their crews staring at the empty space where Rian's ship had been. Slowly, the communication officer on the Hammerfall whispered, "He did it." The science officer added, "Commander Hale saved us all. The fleet lowered their weapons. The threat was gone. The galaxy was safe." And the story of how one SOS signal led to humanity sending a fleet of dreadnoughts. At one commander's final sacrifice would be remembered across space for generations. Humanity had done what no one else could, and the stars would never forget.